Hey everybody, Jim the Tabletop Engineer here, and welcome to a new episode. This is going to be a crafting video. It's going to be a little different, mainly because your friendly neighborhood engineer did something really stupid last week. I got injured. Not bad. Oh, well, depends on your definition of bad. I'm okay now. But let me just go ahead and issue a public safety notice or warning here. Be careful when using sharp blades. Always be aware of where your hands are. Always be aware of where the blade is, and don't make the mistake I did and slice your middle finger not only open but part of it off. I'm not going to. I promise. I'm not going to show any gory pictures in this video, so don't worry about something surprising you there. Yeah, last week I was doing some work here in the basement, and for a split second, my attention was not on the blade, and it did a number. And immediately looking at it, I knew it was an emergency room visit. There was no doubt. It's one of those. If you've ever had one of those moments where you're like, "Do I go to the emergency room for this, or do I just wrap it up and hope for the best?" No, this one required some attention from a non-medical person. I went in. Let me tell you, docking the boxes. I know some people love them, some people hate them. I absolutely love them, especially if you have kids. I have never had any issues with the dock in the box near our house, so I immediately made a beeline for that. The problem with my cut was where it sheared off part of my. It'll grow back. It's not like I'm going to be missing my middle finger, but there's going to be a good chunk of it that's going to be like a little divot or whatever, I imagine. But where I cut it, I guess there are blood vessels, and then there are blood vessels. This was not a what do you call it, artery? Yeah, but there are different size blood vessels, and apparently I got two of them really good at an angle, and they could not get it to stop bleeding. I had lost a lot of blood. I mean, it was a lot of blood, and I was getting lightheaded, and I was just, and I have a very good tolerance of pain from years of experience of visiting the hospital, and I don't get weirded out by medical procedures and things like that. So I was watching them, do it, and they could not get it to stop bleeding. So this is what they told me. They said, "Mr. Kelly, there are a few options we have to stop the bleeding here. All of them are not going to feel good. Some of them are going to take longer than others." And I said, "Time out. This is you or your child. What would you recommend? What do you want to do?" The lady said, the doctor said, I would recommend that we cauterize. As soon as she said that word, I was like, repeat that, please. Cauterize. Because my experience with cauterization is in movies. They'll sprinkle gunpowder on a wound and light it, and the guy will lose his mind. Using fire to seal, like John Wick movies. He cut his finger off and they cauterized it with a hot iron, poker iron. My first question was, okay, scale of 1 to 10, how bad? And she's like, "Well, I've never had it done, but the patients I have done it to tell me it's pretty intense." Okay, here's a translation. When a medical person tells you that a pain is intense, on the 0 to 10 pain scale, that's a 10. Okay, I can verify that. I will tell you right now, out of all the pain that I've had a collapsed lung, I've had stitches all over my body, back of the head without anesthetic because it was too near they couldn't give me anesthetic for where the location was. I've got stitches. Trust me. I've experienced different levels of pain. This was a 10 out of 10. And I'm going to show you a picture. This is not a gross picture. This is the tool. I'm going to post a picture here. This is the tool they use to cauterize. Now, let me tell you, those of us who craft as a hobby, if you have ever used a hot glue gun, you know that pain. It is hot. It hurts. It is extremely hot, especially if your finger ever touched the tip or you got a big blob of glue on your skin and you couldn't get it off fast enough, and then you're pulling it with your fingers, so your fingers are getting burned, whereas where the glue is, we know that pain. If you've never experienced that pain, I don't recommend you go test it. Don't go squeeze a glove glue. Trust me, it is painful and it blisters and it's terrible. This cauterization made hot glue feel like a tickle. I'm probably exaggerating there. Hot glue hurts. But oh my goodness. So basically what it is, it looks like a little pin. And they've got a button, and they press the button. And on the end, there's a little wire that just makes a U. It goes out, and it comes back in. What it is they are basically shorting a battery with a wire, a single wire. And this wire is ultra thin, like filament thin, like in a light bulb. When they push that button, the current runs through the wire, and it instantly goes from red, orange to white, blinding white. And not only that, when she held it and you're looking at it, it is hard to look at. It's that bright. So she showed it to me because I asked. I said, "Hey, can I see how it works?" And she went, and I went, "Oh." And then I said, "Can I take a picture?" So I took a picture of it, and I'm going to share that with you right here. Yes, this is the tool. It's a small cauterizing pen, I think is what they call it. And what they do is when they have a blood vessel that will not close, they have different ways. They could sew it up, but they have to inject, around it to deaden the finger, and then they have to sew it, and it's a very fine bit of work. And apparently it takes a while, and doesn't feel good. She's like, this is like a 1/10 of a second or less, intense, that's her words, intense, and it's done. Now at the time, she had found one capillary that would not, there was a lot of blood, one capillary that would not seal, would not clot, or they couldn't get it to stop bleeding. So she's like, lay down. I did. She's like, they gave me something to grip on, like a piece of, it was almost like bubble wrap, but it was squishy and you could grip it. And I said, do I need to bite down on something? She goes, no, you don't need to bite down on something. Safety notice, if you ever have this done, get something to bite down on, because your teeth will hurt the next day. She took my finger, she held it up, and she goes, I'm going to count to 3. And I went, uh-huh. She goes, no. I'm not going to do I'm going to count to 3, 1, 2, psst. She goes, you're going to know. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, touch. She goes, no trickery. Okay. She takes my hand. She goes, you ready? I said, yeah. She goes, 1, 2, 3. That's all I remember. I didn't pass out. All I remember was I saw the light of glory in the room. Everything lit up. Every muscle in my body, I think, tensed at once. It was like an electric jolt. I can still, this is a week ago, and I can still remember what it felt like. You cannot ignore a pain like that. You can't do it. There was no way she could have touched that and be gone, No. It affected every muscle. It was crazy. So she got it, and she goes, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, in my heart rate. By the way, they were monitoring my heart rate. It went from like 80, which was high because I was in somewhat shock or whatever. But it went up into well over 100. I mean, my heart rate just shot up. She's like, "Okay, we need to give you a minute," and I'm like, "Yeah, give me a minute." During that minute, they discovered that there was a second capillary that would not stop bleeding. I got 2 for 1. So she goes, "Mr. Kelly, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but we got a second one." I said, now at this point, I was willing to entertain options, like ask them, let's try the sewing option this time. But having gone through it once and realizing that how fast it was over, it was done, it happened and it was over. I'm more in terms of speedy versus like, let's do a full inspect. I said, give me 5 minutes. I said, give me 5 minutes, just let my heart rate come down. I asked her for a bottle of water. I said, can I please have some water? I drank an entire bottle of water. I said, okay, I'm psyched. I'm ready for this. Let's do it again. The second time is worse because you know what to expect. You know exactly what's going to happen, what it's going to feel like. So she goes, once again, I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3, touch. I said, okay. I said, maybe you should surprise me this time. She goes, no, no, no. She goes, we don't do that. I was sort of joking, but I was part of like, maybe I should just go, okay, pick a random number between 1 and 10. You count in your head and just do it. I'm just going to sit there. She goes, no. She goes, I need you to prepare yourself mentally and physically. I said, okay. This is a small little wire that just gets really hot. You would think that you would just touch and hurt, and you pull your finger back and go, ow, 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 ow. No, it is beyond description unless you have had it done. If you've had it done, I suspect your memory probably is pretty clear about it, and you know what I'm talking about. Cauterization, extreme heat to seal a wound. She did the second one, and oh my gosh, I think it was worse for the second one, mainly because when she said 3, I think I clenched my jaw, and I clenched my fist even harder, and then it happened again. It was just like pure intense, like bam, and it was over. My heart rate shot up again. My jaw didn't hurt that day, but the next day it did. I was like, oh, because I think I clenched every muscle in my body. My shoulders hurt. It was pretty intense. Oh, and to top it off, they gave me a tetanus shot, which that usually doesn't bother me. But oh my gosh, the next day I thought my left arm was going to fall off. It was that crazy. So anyway, that is the story of how your friendly neighborhood tabletop engineer got his finger injured and fixed using standard crafting technology, heat and glue. No, here's where the glue part comes in. After they closed it, the wound was pretty exposed. I cut a chunk out, and all the nerves were exposed or whatever. So they pulled out that military grade glue, and it has a name, and they put the biggest dab over it. And what was interesting was as soon as that glue went over, it took about 5 or 10 minutes. It was a big blob. It took about 5 or 10 minutes to cool. She said blow on it, but it stays tacky for a long time. But once that glue went on and it cooled, oh my gosh, it still hurt, but you could tell that that the nerves were still firing, and it was just going to take time for the hand to calm down. It calmed down since a week ago. It's gotten better. However, anytime something touches the tip here of my finger, oh man, I see stars. It hurts. It still hurts. And she says it's going to take about 2 weeks for it to get a good, covering, coating, whatever, scab to really start healing well. So until then, I've got to keep it covered, and once a day I have to let it air out or whatever, get some air, and then I wrap it again. It's hard to bend the finger, so as you can imagine, crafting is quite hard right now. So is typing. I went from 80 words a minute. I did a little test because I have to skip this finger and use this finger for when I would use my middle finger. My errors are through the roof, but my typing speed went from about 80 words a minute down to about 20, and that's 20 with errors. Because I'm trying to type and use this finger to do so you have to anyway. As a writer and a crafter, a right hand person, probably one of the worst injuries I could get. I told my wife, right now, there was a couple days ago, when it was hurting so bad, it was like just so bad. I was like, if a doctor offered to like amputate the end off, I might consider it. I wasn't in the right state of mind when I thought that. I wouldn't do it today, but boy, it was throbbing and I could not think. And I was like, oh man, maybe I should have just told him to get rid of it. But anyway. All right, I hope you enjoyed this little story. This is why, for the next probably week or two, I'm not going to be able to do much crafting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fall back on the tool behind me, my laser cutter back there, my laser cutter. I've got some things I've been wanting to do with my laser, and I figure even though most people don't have a laser, I could probably still show you how I'm going to be designing some things, explain some of my thinking, and show you something that I'm creating that I'm going to send to the laser cutter. So what is it? All right, well, I've got a few, but the first thing is my son just turned 12. He is totally into the Marvel movies, Marvel characters, that stuff. He doesn't like comic books. Doesn't want to read comic books, but he likes the movies. He likes the characters. We've been playing this game called Marvel Champions. It's a card game where you play a Marvel hero and you go up against the bad guys. And it's cooperative. You work together. He loves this game, and we play it at least twice a week. There's also a game store that hosts a Monday night gathering of players, and I've been taking him to that. But he also knows that I'm really into miniature war games. And he's been wanting to... He likes to play miniature war games with me, but he sort of loses interest. Well, he's discovered Marvel Crisis Protocol, which is a Marvel superhero miniatures game. The miniatures come unpainted, unassembled. You glue them together, you paint them, put them on the table. In this game, it's a two-player game. You can play team-ups of heroes and villains versus your opponent, heroes and villains, or you could do heroes versus villains. He wants to play this game, and I wholeheartedly agree that it looks like a fun game. I've watched some play videos, so he wants to play the game. So for his birthday, we got him the core set, and I've got to paint the miniatures. It's going to be very hard. He wants me to paint the miniatures, and I understand. He's not quite confident in his painting ability yet, so he wants Dad to paint them. The problem with the game is it doesn't come with a game mat. You use terrain, like storefronts and buildings and cars and things like that. And it's O scale, by the way. O, as in the letter O. So you can go to like a hobby store that sells like trains that are O scale, and you can buy the scenery, the trees and the buildings and things that are O scale to use on your tabletop with this game. These miniatures are not 28 or 32 mil. I think they're 40 millimeter. They're bigger than your standard miniatures that we gamers tend to play with. But they're kind of cool. They're big and they're easier to paint unless you're injured. And so we're going to start playing that. I watched some videos on some people who made their own mats for the game. You can buy them, but they're kind of pricey, and they're just a one-shot deal. Like, if you don't like the layout of it, you could rotate it 90 degrees, but it's still the same design on it. It's because it's neoprene. So I was watching these videos, and I'll put a link to some of the original videos that I used for inspiration in the description below. I decided I wanted to create a modular game area. The game plays on a 36-inch by 36-inch tabletop area, so like a mat, 36 by 3 feet by 3 feet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create 9 tiles, 12 by 12, that I can rearrange to create different layouts. And while I'm doing that, I'm also thinking that because each one of these is its own piece, I could create different tiles to make it even more, like, not just 9. I could make like 12 tiles or 15 and give myself more options. So I want to design this in a software program called Inkscape, because in Inkscape I can move things around, rotate them 90 degrees easily, and test out different configurations. So what I'm going to do is for the next week or two, I'm going to create a set of terrain tiles, modular terrain tiles, so that we can play this game. And I'm going to show you how I do it. They're going to be laser cut, but then they're going to be painted, and I'll probably do some texturing to them and some other odds and ends. But I'm looking forward to it. I've been wanting to play a regular miniature war game with my boys for a while. My oldest, not so much into it. He likes Magic, and hey, I don't push my hobbies. But now that my youngest wants to play a miniature war game, especially the Marvel one, I'm game. It's not a game I would have probably gone out and purchased for myself because I don't see it played a lot. But apparently there are some people who play it here in Atlanta, so I'm gonna see if I can hunt them down. But anyway, I do apologize for the length of this video, but I felt like I needed to explain to you not only why I'm not going to be able to do some foam and chipboard crafting. It's going to be mostly laser work, but I thought I'd share with you. Be careful out there. Watch your fingers. Watch the blades. Say no to cauterization. It is a 10 out of 10 on the pain scale, and that's coming from somebody who I feel confident that I can rate different things, different events on that pain scale, and this was a 10 out of 10. So anyway, that's all I have for you right now. The next video, which I may release 2 this week, depends on if I can finish up the 10 or the 9 initial tiles. I'm going to be doing that on my computer, so I'll do a screen grab and narrate as I'm thinking through the process. And I'll share that with you, and hopefully maybe that'll give you some idea of what the software can use to help you when you want to design stuff. I use Inkscape when I'm designing physical objects using chipboard or foam. Sometimes I use Inkscape just to get the measurements, the dimensions, and things like that. Other times I use another program called Tinkercad, which is a 3D CAD application. It's free to use, but this is not, CAD won't help me here. It won't help me do the details, the pothole, manholes, the sidewalks, that kind of stuff. Rest assured, I'll go over that when I get started on it. All right, that's all I have for this video. Just be careful. Don't, us crafters, we get injured. We do a lot of things in our lab, in our workshops, for our hobbies, and we just don't. Just be careful. Don't do this. That's all I got. This is Jim, the Tabletop Engineer. I'll be back with another crafting video very soon. Everybody, take care.